Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting of Wednesday, April 20th, 2016. Can I have a roll call, please?
Dan Carey. Peg Coniff. Here. Salem Derby.
Present.
Jennifer Hayes.
Here.
J.P. Kuzinski.
Here.
Joe McCoy.
Here.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Tamara Smith.
Here.
Joy Winnie.
Great. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could I please have a motion for the approval of the minutes of April 6th, 2016?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the minutes of April 6th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? No? Okay, motion passes. Public speak time. If there's anyone here who would like to address the public for something that's other than what's on our public hearings, and the exception would be that for the resolutions we have today, I'm going to allow a separate speak time for that. But if there's anyone here who would just like to address the council for something that we're not addressing tonight, feel free to come to the podium and state your name and address. Okay, thank you. Communication, do this one. Communications from elected boards and officials. Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did receive communication from the Veterans Council to inform people that on Monday, May 30th of this year, on Memorial Day, there will be a parade. There will be staging at 10 a.m. on Clark Street, and it will go from Clark Street up Cottage Street, Union Street, Main Street, around Pulaski Park, continue down Main Street past the library, turn left on Payson Lane. We'll end at the library where there will be a ceremony, which includes laying of wreaths, speeches, volley of fire, and musical selections. And then everyone is invited back to the American Legion Post 224 at 190 Pleasant Street for a complimentary lunch.
Okay, I guess that includes communications, right? Okay, it's a little bit unusual today that we actually have two resolutions on our agenda tonight. The first one, because of a great attendance here and in consideration for all you people coming on at such a nice evening, I think we're going to address that one first. The second one, relating to public schools, actually went through the rules subcommittee, and so that will be discussed and able to be spoken to when Councilor Risk gives his report. So anyway, moving on to the first resolution, we're going to tackle tonight the transgender bill. I don't know if Councilor Smith or Hayes wants to start first. But.
You can start, or I can start.
Would you like me to read the resolution?
Sure,
and
okay,
the
when we start there.
justification for it?
Okay.
Okay. Well, I wanted to thank everyone for being here, and I'm going to read the resolution as it stands. In the year 2016, upon the recommendation of Councilors Jennifer Hayes and Tamara Smith, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of East Hampton in City Council, whereas the East Hampton City Council has a commitment to treat all persons with dignity and respect, as evidenced by the passing of a resolution pertaining to discrimination and tolerance, which states, the City of East Hampton and its representatives shall not condone or tolerate any form of discrimination on the basis of race, color, religious creed, age, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity or expression, physical or mental disability, or veteran status. Whereas the City of East Hampton includes transgender people and allies who live here, work here, attend our schools, and contribute to our community and economy. Whereas gender identity discrimination and bullying are lead causes of suicide among transgender youth, and the East Hampton Public School System has demonstrated commitment to the rights and safety of transgender youth, as evidenced by gender-neutral restrooms at the high school and an active straight gay student alliance. Therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of East Hampton is enthusiastically supportive of the provisions of S735 and H1577, the bill that would add gender identity to existing Massachusetts civil rights law for public accommodations. Massachusetts law currently prohibits discrimination in public accommodations on the basis of age, race, creed, color, national origin, sexual orientation, sex, religion, and marital status. And further resolved that copies of this resolution be sent to the Senate President Rosenberg, House Speaker DeLeo, Representative Sybeck, Senator Humison, and Governor Baker. So that's the language of the proposed resolution, and I know I would like to speak as to why why I wanted to be included in bringing this forward. I have a statement that I'm going to read, and I obviously will talk a lot more in general on this as well. So as a city councilor at large in East Hampton, which is the role that I have, the most important aspect of my job is to represent and to create a safe space for all community members. Our city spaces, our public parks, our schools, this governmental building, our stores, our churches, restaurants, medical offices, art galleries, are the spaces that breathe life into our community and make East Hampton ours. These spaces that are open to the public should be open to everyone on the same terms, including residents and visitors who are transgender or gender nonconforming. East Hampton, and specifically the East Hampton City Council, has consistently taken measures to state these shared values of our community. These measures, including non-binding resolutions, matter. They've mattered to my own family, and I'm proud to be living in a community that cares for all people. Supporting an act relative to transgender anti-discrimination through our non-binding resolution simply reaffirms our council's commitment to represent and create a safe space for all community members of East Hampton. Thank you.
Councilor Hayes, did you want to say anything?
I did, yes. I also prepared a statement, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what everybody else is going to say, too. But first, I'd like to thank everybody for coming here tonight, and for the advice and support that Councilor Smith and I have gotten from everybody as far as putting this together. It's really been a group effort. And we've gotten great advice from other elected officials across the state, civil rights activists, and our friends and neighbors. And while a non-binding resolution is exactly that, non-binding, I think it's important for the community to be heard in a formal legislative way on policy issues that directly affect members of the community. I feel strongly about supporting an act relative to transgender anti-discrimination. Adding gender identity extends discrimination protections to our fellow transgender and gender nonconforming folks. Civil equal rights and increasing public engagement through better accessibility to local government are two causes that I champion as an elected official. I'm not happy that Governor Baker is declining to take a stance here, and one of the most pro-LGBTQ communities in the United States. And when I first heard that he was waffling, I wondered what we could do. So shortly thereafter, I heard that the Boston City Council had passed a resolution in support of the legislation, and I immediately took steps to about replicating that public support here. I really want to thank the Freedom Massachusetts organization. They hosted a really well-attended and informational event a couple of weeks ago, and it really drove home that this bill needs to pass. I don't know anyone can hear some of the personal stories associated with denying or constraining the rights of and services to the LGBTQ community without wanting to take action. It's a civil rights issue, and I look forward to having the City of East Hampton's name on the list of communities supporting the passage of these two bills to fully protect transgender-based daters.
So at this point, obviously, we can open it up to public. It's usually for resolutions we don't do this, but it's obviously an emotional and important issue. So I'd like to allow anyone who'd like to come up. Because of so many of you, certainly if you'd like to keep your comments for around 2 minutes, that would really be appreciated. But anyone who wants to speak to the issue, please just come to the podium, just state your name and address just for our record.
Good evening. Thank you, City Councilor Hayes, Councilor Smith, for introducing this important resolution. My name is Jennifer Levi. I live at 11 Bryant Avenue. I'm the Director of the Transgender Rights Project of GLBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders. I'm on the faculty of Western New England Law School, but most importantly, I'm a proud East Hampton resident. My family and I moved here about 13 years ago, actually. It's the only home that our kids have known. I'm here with my spouse and partner. And we are tremendously happy about the diversity and the support that we receive from our East Hampton community. And we think that it's essential to have our community that is so supportive go on record for the broad support that we share and provide for our neighbors. I've worked on the transgender non-discrimination bill since 2004. It was passed in part, but not completely, in 2011. There's work that remains to be done to get the public accommodations protections passed into law. And every step that local communities have taken to support this bill goes a far way towards getting the protections that all of the residents of the Commonwealth need but I would be tremendously pleased with the council's support of this resolution tonight. So I thank you. And I thank you all for your service to the community.
Great,
Thank you
thanks.
for yours.
Anyone else would like to speak?
My name's Joe Landers. I live at 27 Howard Ave, and I've been in town long enough that I just put the second roof on my house. Moved here in '97, and I fully support inclusion. I'm really proud of the work that's been done to make the community welcoming, and I'd like to see that keep moving forward. I'm hoping the state and eventually the nation follow the leads of the towns. Tam Wright emailed the same thing to you because I was thinking that I wouldn't make it down, but basically what I just said. In the letter.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
My name is Amy Dame. I'm a frequent resident of East Hampton when I'm here. I live at 28 Oliver Street. I've been coming to East Hampton frequently for 3 years now, and one of the first things that I fell in love with about East Hampton was that it's such a strong sense of community here. The arts is amazing, the people I meet are all amazing, and I love that it's a small town community feel without the small town conservative values of the towns I grew up in. And so I live in a much larger city that has the big city values at times, but the community isn't there. And so I really appreciate East Hampton having both. And I congratulate the City Council on putting forward this initiative, which further indicates the acceptance and understanding that I see in the people I meet here and the people that I spend time with. I wanted to speak a little bit about kind of the elephant in the room, the bathroom issue that tends to come up around this conversation. I feel like the people who are against these bills like to pit women against each other by saying that trans women will be a risk to cisgender women, which is women who identify with the gender that they were assigned at birth. But approving our this motion will not actually affect that at all. There are already laws in place that make it illegal for someone to enter a bathroom to assault someone or to harass someone. This will not change that at all. All it will do is make it safer for all women to access resources and access services. And so I would encourage you to look past kind of maybe gut reaction if you are concerned about that, because I really identify with women who feel vulnerable in spaces because of this, and I see how this issue can kind of prey on that vulnerability that's super valid and real. And I just encourage you to look past that and look at the larger picture, and that we're trying to make space that's safe for all women, regardless of gender and how they were assigned at birth.
Great, thank you.
Hello, I'm Jane Hamill. I live in East Hampton. I own 2 businesses in East Hampton. I'm pretty invested here. And that's because I've never had a bad experience here. So I appreciate what you're doing. It's very emotional for me. But thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jane.
Jim Valancourt, 15 Cottage Street, East Hampton. I just find that it's phenomenal that in this day and age we are still legislating to get equal rights for people, and I'm proud to live in a city that is trying to make that happen. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Daniel O'Donohue. I live at 32 Adams Street in East Hampton. I have been a resident on and off here for the last 10 years. I teach health, family, and consumer science at Hopkins Academy, and also I'm the JV softball coach at Hopkins Academy, and I'm a newly elected commissioner to the Massachusetts Commission on GLBTQ Youth, one of 3 from Western Massachusetts to represent youth and making sure that places, schools, and communities are fully inclusive of their identities and needs. For me, a letter of support from the City Council to East Hampton will signal officials on Beacon Hill and the governor that no matter where outside of the 495 belt, that trans people's lives are valued and valid, that we are part and active parts of the community in all places, and that we do deserve to be fully included in everything. As a resident living in this beautiful city, that I get to see the mountain every day and hike up every weekend when I want to, I see the beauty, I see the color, I see the difference around me everywhere, and it just enhances my life and feeling of being a fully included part of this East Hampton community. And for me, by having this legislation be supported by the town that I live in, the place that I call home, for me it means that I get to live my authentic life as who I am in this community, and it makes a huge difference to our families and our friends to be able to live in a place where we are allowed to be who we are. And as a teacher, it signals to me a future where our young people can grow up and live in a place where they value all people and understand that that is the most important thing, is that we teach each other how to be compassionate and love each other and be able to lift each other up and support each other around our rights. Thank you.
Hi, councilors. My name is Troy Gray. My wife and I own a two-family house on Clark Street. We're not originally from East Hampton, but we moved here in 2005, and we quickly learned that this was the place where we wanted to put down our roots and start a family, and that's what we're doing now. And this legislation for these bills is exactly the type of reason that this is the kind of place for us, because the community gets together and supports its citizens, and it doesn't discriminate or bully, and it won't put up with that. And I thank Councilor Smith and Hayes very much for putting this together and sending this up to the state to tell them that we are a community that will not stand for that. I watch the news and I read a lot of news, and it's when I see some of the stuff going on in the country right now, it is super sad, disgusting, and very dangerous. Some of the attitudes that are spreading, some of them in the name of some very religious organizations that, in the name of God, quite frankly, and it's that is super disgusting to me. So thank you very much, and thank you all.
Thank you.
My name is Ami Ross. I live at 28 Oliver Street. I bought a house 4 years ago in East Hampton, though I had lived in Northampton for 20 years. I love East Hampton. I like to say it's a small town feeling without a small-minded feeling, which is really important. I'm not transgender, but I'm often seen as one because I'm a bearded lady, and every time I go to a doctor, hospital, any public sphere, any rest stop, every time I step into a bathroom, I'm preparing myself for someone to be challenging me, because I represent what I feel my woman looks like, because this is how I was born, and I'm comfortable with that. But I'm challenged on a regular basis. The transgender community is my community because we're othered. You don't fit into a box, but we all choose what box we want, and we are conforming to it. And I think it's really important that we're allowed to define that. And it's not just check one, it's also be one. And this town really represents to me a diversity and openness, and it makes me really proud to be in a community that is on the cutting edge of legislation, where our own baker is waffling, which really makes my heart sad, but also makes me really proud to know that the community I live in is open to dialogue and is spearheading, again, legislation that is really, really important for inclusiveness for a community that has been left out of a dialogue, and is 60%, the transgender community experiences discrimination at a rate of 60% higher than any other community, and that's too high. So I really am glad that we're doing this, and that there's the space for this in this council. And I really thank Hayes and Smith for doing the work.
My name is Christian Rader. I co-own Comics and More on Union Street. My wife and mother-in-law also have just recently bought a house on Clark Ave. We are thrilled to be a part of East Hampton, and in light of Baker's recent cowardice, being told that there would be an opportunity to address this city council about supporting legislation like this. Wednesdays are our busiest day. New comic books come out on Wednesdays. We do about a third to a half of our business on Wednesdays, which is an odd thing. I know most businesses aren't like that. Ours is. I found someone to cover me. It was important enough to be here. There's a bill, House Bill 1320, which would introduce to Massachusetts similar legislation as in North Carolina, Georgia, and Mississippi. It is time to refuse and to resist any sort of direction towards that. And if we can do it here, we can do it. We can continue to do it. Thank you.
Is anyone else? There we go.
Hi, my name's Jessica. I live at 29 Clark Street. I'm a recent transplant to here in East Hampton, but I've been a big advocate for LGBTQ rights. And something that's come to my mind when I heard about this ordinance was thinking about public spaces and thinking about youth in particular. And one of the biggest users of public spaces is the youth population. And so thinking about accommodations that are fair and equal to all youth at whatever stage they are. And that might be a stage of expression or identity. And sometimes there's not necessarily the backing from parents or other legal entities to support them in a way that would protect them beyond that identity or expression. So adding gender identity and expression, that language is awesome and very important. And I really appreciated addressing, thinking about youth, and you had brought up rates of suicide and rates of bullying, and those things can never be understated and are critical. So I really appreciate the seriousness that's being taken and realizing this is beyond just a few words on a piece of paper, and really means a lot more. And I'm very proud to be in a community that is addressing the needs of all of its citizens and its youth. So thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this issue? Okay, let me give the anyone counselors have anything additional to say before?
No, I just want to thank everybody for coming and speaking. That really means a lot to us. It's important to have the public involvement with this, and it really validates a lot of the work that we did. And it's easy to, we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. I'm very, again, we've always been, and some of you have mentioned, I'm so proud of our council. We sign these resolutions every term, and I am absolutely certain that this will pass unanimously tonight. Matter of fact, I'm sure that unfortunately our two counselors, Councilor Winnie, who couldn't make it tonight, as well as Councilor Carey, I'm sure will sign on to it, even though they couldn't be here tonight. So with that, we have the discussion. We've heard the resolution, so I will entertain a motion to accept that motion, that resolution.
I'll move.
Okay, is there a
I'll second.
There's a motion, a second to accept that resolution as read. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Thank you again. Thank you all for coming. And
Mr. President, I move to open the public hearings.
okay, is there a second for that?
Second.
Motion second to open the public hearings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. I believe it's Finance, Councilor List.
I thank the people who are here for public hearings for your patience. That was an important item we had to deal with. The first up is the $183,000 that was approved 3-0 by the Finance Committee for the Fire Department.
Excuse me, Mr.
Overtime issue?
Mayor, communication?
Yeah, we're late for public hearing.
Oh,
so
okay.
we
We'll
need to
go
get
back to that. So rather than, there's a lot of things that involve this, including retirement vacancies, civil service delays, etc. I'd like the chief to come up, who will speak to it, as usual, much better than I. The reason for the amount.
Good evening, councilors. As Councilor Rist said, the request was, I'll call it the perfect storm of injuries, illnesses, and a delay in hiring through the archaic civil service system. Just the three items I brought up, approximately $108,000 of overtime was the cost for that, between the injuries, the illness, and the delay. It would have been a lot worse had the mayor not allowed me to hire a firefighter above what was in the funded amount. So we went up one position above to stop the bleeding for overtime. And just to give you an estimate on the impact that had, the first 13 pay weeks, or 13 pay periods of the fiscal year, 26 weeks, the average overtime spent was $14,646. Once we instituted the additional hiring above what the funding amount was, that amount was cut by almost 60%. So the steps taken to, within our control, cut that spending by 60%, just by putting on 2 firefighters, one of those being above the funded amount until we could complete a retirement. The long-term fix, Mayor Cadger has allowed me to put in for a federal staffing grant that for 2 years funds 100% salary and benefits. Previous administration did not like the grant program because at the end of the grant program, you had a guarantee that you kept that employee for, depending what year it was, either 1 or 2 years at 100%. They've changed it where they fund it 100% for 2 years, and then at the end of that second year, you can let that employee go through layoff or lose the position through attrition. So that grant alone, I think it was $81,000, almost $82,000 the first year with salary and benefits. The second year was going to be around $87,000. We'll find that out midsummer sometime when that would come through, which would definitely have an impact on reducing overtime for this fiscal year, but definitely FY17 and 18. That's all I have, unless any councilors have any questions.
Specific questions for the chief? No? Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the council on this appropriation? Please come up to the podium, state your name and address. Okay, not seeing Councilor Rist.
Then I'll make a motion. As I said, this was passed 3-0 by the Finance Committee. The amount requested for a supplemental appropriation is $183,000. Is to be appropriated from free cash, to be appropriated to the Fire Department overtime account for $183,000. The amounts requested would be used for the following purpose: to provide funds for overtime hours due to injuries and illness, among other things. I move that we accept this request.
Okay, it's a motion, a second, to approve the supplemental appropriation of $183,000. Additional comments, questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
The second supplemental appropriation request is from the CPA. I represent not only the Finance Committee, which voted 3-0 to support this request, but also I happen to be the chair of the CPA. As you can see by the documents that were submitted, this $185,000 is primarily for the field lighting of White Brook Middle School's football field, and a lot of discussion was held by the CPA, but it passed unanimously. You'll note there is a project funding worksheet. This was instituted to make sure that a lot of the guidelines, updates, project signs that indicate crediting the CPA, etc., are part of what amounts to a contract with the group that is, in this case, the school department, asking for and being granted a CPA dollar request. A lot of questions were brought up by the committee. One of them was uses for this besides the football games, and the athletic director's here, and I'd like her to speak to that. But also questions about whether or not it would accommodate track and field, and that's why the lights were moved back a little bit so that they could accommodate that. I credit the Friends of Football who are also here because they had foresight during the recent renovation of the grass. They put in conduit which allows for this lighting to be moved across the field. They don't have to dig up the grass now and lay that pipe, so that was good foresight. I think this is an excellent project, and it fits in under the Open Space and Recreation Act rules. So I'd like also our assistant planner, Jamie Webb, is here if you have questions about the funding. But I also want to compliment her. She has been a very good guide for us on the CPA. So if the athletic director would like to come up and speak to this, and then the Friends of Football, if you want to.
Good evening. My name is Patty Doherty. I'm the athletic director at East Hampton High School. I also live in East Hampton, 82 Lovefield Street. So we've been really lucky to partner with Friends of Football, not only on building a new field. They did a tremendous amount of work fundraising on that, and as Dan said, they had foresight to lay the conduit before, so we could then come back to the CPA committee and apply for funding to have our field lighted. A couple things to know. We are, I believe, the only high school in our division, although those are starting to be mixed up again, that doesn't have lights on its field. And, you know, for us to be able to have our games on Friday nights as opposed to Saturday afternoons, not only does that help promote our program, but I think it's a great opportunity for the community to come out and support the high school and the football team. And it's just a little bit more of an event. Also, we have been moved up a division in our league. So we are going to be playing a tougher schedule, and I think that lighting our field goes along with the raising of the stature of our program. I know that some of the questions were about additional uses for the field, and we do want to, the first thing we want to do is make sure that the field is primarily used for the football program, as that's what it's been built for. That said, in working with Friends of Football, we see a number of different ways the lighted field could be used. One example is our soccer program right now for our senior nights. We rent the field over at Williston. And senior nights are really important to our players. It's a really excellent night for our senior players who have been in our program for 4, sometimes 6 years if they start playing in middle school. It's an opportunity to really celebrate them. And right now, it does cost us quite a bit to rent that field from Williston and their lights. Friends of Football has, said that they would allow us to have our soccer senior nights at the football field, and that's excellent. Additionally, in the spring in particular, when it's not football season, I think the lighted field could be a really good community resource. I think that there could be opportunities for other groups in town to rent the field, or we could donate the field for fundraisers, whatever we would, whatever the groups would want to do. We definitely want to make the field available. And in thinking about this, we don't really have a lot of spaces where you can have events in the evening. So I think this is an excellent opportunity for the city to have that type of space. Also, there is some movement right now. We started a girls lacrosse club at East Hampton High School with the idea of creating a girls lacrosse team that would actually compete against other MIA teams. Ultimately, I think that could be an opportunity as well for maybe not all their games, but some of their games could be night games. And all those night games really do help us generate some income for the athletics department, which obviously isn't, funded that terrifically in town. We have a lot of support from our boosters and whatever, but when it comes down to the school budget, textbooks, technology, teaching staff, take that priority. So having the lighted field, I do think, is going to help our budget out and give us opportunities to maintain that budget and get the other equipment and things we need.
Thank you. Do you want to call anyone else? Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Friends of football want to speak, or how are you?
Feels like Patty really covered everything, but I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that there are.
I did want to speak to one thing that might be on people's minds. The Friends of Football are contributing funding and effort toward the maintenance of the field. This is not an ongoing new budget issue for the school department. The field maintenance and the lighting maintenance, which will be minimal, will be covered by the Friends of Football, and I appreciate that. The only real direct cost to the schools will be the utility cost, and it's minimal because it's low energy, high lumen output lighting, and it's not used that often. So I wanted to mention that, and if the counselors were thinking of that.
Joe?
No, do you have a question?
Yes. So one of the things we talked about in finance, and I just want to throw it out there in case anyone's thinking about it, is if there would be any changes in the security because it's a night game. And we talked about that, and I think from your perspective, you already have security for the day games, and you didn't anticipate there would be any greater need at night. Is that correct?
Yeah, we already do have police detail. We're required to have a police detail for all our football games. If we felt that we needed to have an extra policeman on for night games, I'm pretty confident that would be covered by the gate.
Thank you.
Is that your question?
That's it, yep, thank you.
Any other questions? No. Okay, thank you again.
Thanks.
If there's anyone else from the public who would like to speak to the council concerning this appropriation, feel free to come up. State your name. There you go.
Hi, I'm Amy Guyette. I own Tavern on the Hill, and I'm the president of East Hampton Friends of Football. And I would just like to thank the council, the school committee, the CPA, and the community for their support through this whole project. I mean, from getting the field to lighting the field. So I would just like to thank everybody for their support, and I appreciate it.
Great.
And the players appreciate it. The kids, it's great. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
We did use it.
Good evening. No, I'm David Motter, 9 Kimberly Lane. I think anytime as a city, we have a chance to show our support for the youth, even if it's something simple as lighting or rebuilding the football field, building baseball diamonds, building a soccer field, I think it's important. Those of you who know me know that I'm a very outspoken supporter of youth sports because I think it's a declining activity. The numbers aren't what they were 30 years ago, and those of us that have young children know why. But as Amy said, I guarantee you the first night those lights come on, the brightest thing on that field will be the football players' smiles. I've seen it with the baseball fields, softball fields, and the soccer project. The first time those kids hit that field, the thrill that they get. I saw the smiles on our football team this year, the first game they played on the new field at Whitebrook. To me, as a taxpayer, it was worth every penny. Not only showing we support them, but we're giving them a safe environment to play. And the fact that instead of playing under the lights at Williston, playing on their own home field will pay huge dividends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I can't forget the mayor as well. I'd like to thank Mayor.
Anyone else would like to address the council on this appropriation? Okay, let's have Councilor Rist.
I therefore move a supplemental appropriation request to council approval for the amount requested of $185,000 to be appropriated from CPA reserve for open space, $60,000, CPA budgeted reserve, $125,000, to be appropriated to White Brook Middle School athletic field lights, $185,000, for the following purpose: to fund the purchase and installation of athletic field lighting in White Brook Middle School, as recommended by the Community Preservation Act, and as stipulated on the project funding worksheet dated March 24, 2016 by the CPA.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the supplemental appropriation of $185,000 for the installation of athletic field lighting at White Brook Middle School. Additional comments or questions?
This was voted 3-0 by the Finance Committee. Sorry.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice.
I move the public hearings be closed.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained. Okay, getting back to the agenda, I think we left out mayor communications, I believe.
No mayor
No.
communications. I think that was it. I'm good.
I guess, no communication.
I have a question.
I'm sorry? Oh, you have a question for the mayor? Okay.
I do, yeah.
Mayor Cadger, I guess there's a question for you.
Hi, thank you. So I know we have a vacancy for the city arts coordinator. How important would you say that position is for East Hampton?
Well, the arts coordinator is an extremely important position. I think everybody has expressed their appreciation of the person that has it now, which is Burns. We're all very happy for her in her career move. We're all also very sad to lose her here. I believe that this position will get a lot of interest.
Mm-hmm. So I just find it a little strange that you've only given 10 days.
Well, that would be,
For
if we, well, first of all, that is our standard procedure because you have to do the 10 days. And the good part about that is if we get a lot of applications, qualified applications like I expect, then we can get somebody in there sooner and fill the vacancy.
Well, I think it might be better to have it available for a longer period of time. I work in the arts community, and a lot of people have asked me questions about this, and it happened just over 10 days and a week where there was like a holiday. So they were wondering, you know, why there was just such a small window for being able to apply for such an important position at East Hampton. Well, and if we allowed people to apply for a longer period of time, it would really increase the pool of people that we could pull from.
And if we don't get enough applicants, or we don't, get enough qualified applicants, we extend it. We extend the deadlines many times. It's very just standard routine. That's the way that things are done. But we do have to do the 10 days, which
that's the
which
minimum,
we do.
Right?
Right, which we do, but again, we have already, this is pretty widespread, and there's been articles covering it, and we advertise it everywhere, and we're already expecting, a good pool of candidates. If for some reason that doesn't happen, then we repost it and extend the deadline.
As a request, would you consider extending the deadline now?
It's already posted.
Yes.
So at this time, that's the way it is. And if for any reason we didn't receive a good enough pool of candidates, large pool of qualified people, then we would go from there. But once it's posted, it will stay like that until it comes down.
Well, I just really would like you to consider leaving it open for more people to apply. I think the more time we have for people to apply, the more applicants we can get for it that may be more qualified. That's definitely the feedback I'm getting from the arts community with different, like the Mass Cultural Council and out Boston and different communities, like they're really trying to research it. And because it happened over a holiday and it was only 10 days, like they're really questioning why we were only doing it for the minimum. And did we already have somebody that we were, holding the position for, is what I was getting at.
No, we don't do that here.
Right.
We pride ourselves on, on our ethics as far as who we hire. No one is promised anything.
Yeah.
We're
I didn't assume so.
we're an equal opportunity employer, and I hope they don't do it other places, but I can vouch for us. We're very proud of our hiring practices. They're very fair. They're very equitable, and again, normally, people that are interested in a position are they don't hesitate to apply. They usually get their applications in as soon as possible. And I would just, if there are people contacting you, then I would tell them to, get all their information off our website, and any questions, contact our personnel department and get their applications in.
It is such
and
an
then we'll
important
schedule
position for East Hampton.
Right.
That I'd like to see us
And
be
again,
able to interview.
we all
and
agree.
see.
We all agree it's an important position. We have a lot of important positions for the city. If you just look around in this room, you'll see the finance director, the city clerk, the HR director, the assistant city planner. And this is what we do for everybody. We really like to have one process for everybody, and that's just the way things move smoothly and equitable.
Just a quick question.
Councilor Kozinski.
When's the deadline?
The 22nd,
The 22nd,
and it was put up the 11th.
and it came up on the 11th. Okay.
Again, I personally, I'm fine with the policy, because I think it's good to get it filled. If there's someone qualified, let's hire them. If they're not, let's keep it open.
Right, exactly.
But anyway, I think you made your point. I think discussion is okay, unless we have another topic. No.
Anything
Okay,
else?
thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Communications, Standing Committees, Finance, Councilor Rist.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to do a first reading under new business. Amount requested for an interdepartmental transfer of $65,000 to be transferred from the reserve fund, $65,000, to be transferred to the Veterans Cash Benefit, $65,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to provide funds for increased demand for veterans assistance. I read that first because I would like to move that item, $65,000, and interdepartmental transfers of $5,510, $9,500 for the fire department, $32,000 for repairs of streetlights, and $3,300 for the purchase of fire ground rehab trailer, all be set for public hearing at our next council meeting at 6:15 in these chambers. That's a motion.
Second.
Okay, so a motion is second to set public hearings for those previously read items for May 4, 6:15 p.m. in these chambers. Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Our next meeting will be Thursday, April 28th, not Wednesday, April 27th. Thursday, April 28th. At that time, we will review the Veterans Cash Benefit Award. That needs to be done because we have a public hearing, and there was a request for that to be moved quickly. Also, we will be dealing with stipends for boards and committees. And I wanted to reiterate this. This is the time when we are going to decide whether we should increase the council's salary or increase other areas of the council's salaries. I'd love to hear from other fellow councilors on this. I am torn because I know the budget process is difficult for the city. It has been. We delayed it 2 years ago when every 2 years we review stipends, et cetera, primarily because the budget for other departments increases are difficult. And we said at that time we ought to look at it. The Finance Committee, which I was on, Councilor Kozinski was on, looked at it and decided to delay it. So if you're interested in speaking to that, Finance Committee would love to hear from you. That's this Thursday, 28th. I think that's it.
So I think you need to move that to committee first. I think you set a public hearing.
Oh, my apologies. I would like to move that the department transfer of $65,000 be moved to the Finance Committee for review.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to move the interdepartmental transfer of $65,000 to finance for review. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
My apologies. Thank you. That concludes.
Concludes finance. Public safety, Councilor Hayes.
Hi. So we are continuing our review of the street acceptance protocol and the request to accept Fox Run. We're waiting to hear back from Attorney Kemp as far as a timeline as to how long it's going to take them to do the repairs. We kind of think it's going to take a long time, so it might be something to take off the agenda, but until they've put together a work thing, we're not really too sure how long that's going to be. We did hear back from John Fitzgibbon in regards to approving the revised deed for Fox Run and the road acceptance because there was a mistake on it. My question is that I don't know who authorized the fee to pay John Gibbons to take a look at this, our city attorney, because it's not, we haven't put it forward as far as being accepted or anything like that. But we have already heard from him, but because it's going to be off the agenda, I think we're going to have to resubmit it to him. So I was going to ask, I just got that one
He's
today.
approved the deed.
He's approved the deed.
Right. That's his part.
Yeah, I don't think we'll need to resubmit.
No.
I'd
We
resubmit
won't,
it.
we need to resubmit it?
And all I know is city council didn't pay for it, so I'm fine with that.
Well, I know we're supposed to, like, anytime he's involved, make sure it gets
Yeah,
okayed, and when I got a
exactly.
response from him, I'm like, I totally did not authorize that at all.
Right.
So, yeah, we have incurred that expense. And then we have made a meeting for next Wednesday at 5 o'clock, and I think the only agenda item we're gonna put on for that is to complete our mission statement, because we kind of just have to get in one room, 45 minutes, and really hammer it out. And then the on-street parking, what we're going to do is work with, do a site visit and invite property owners and public safety officials and take a look at existing conditions, which Barbara very nicely printed out for us for Pleasant Street. So that's what we're up to.
If I may.
Councilor,
Just speak to one of Councilor Hayes' questions about the deed. Knowing something about deeds and real estate, it's quite common in the industry to have the attorneys look and review the deeds and prepare them. And
Right.
they're compensated for that. And I think, the mayor's office often uses the services of the city attorney for reviewing deeds and out of her budget. So it's a quite common expense. So I agree, I don't think a second review of the deed would be necessary, but the approvals would be there. We would be remiss, I think, if we didn't do that.
Well, I mean, I've definitely been, chastised for having the city attorney talk about things, and I got something from him, so I was like,
I could
Not
appreciate, I could
authorized.
appreciate that.
So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that-
This concludes.
Okay, concludes no appointments, which works out well because Councilor Winnie is in here. Or actually, Councilor Smith, I'm sorry. Only 20
that's
years of
okay.
Councilor Winnie. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
right?
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. We had no meeting this week because we didn't have any new business, but now we do. So I would like to move 2 mayoral appointments to subcommittee. And I would like to make this in the form of a motion to move Martha Smith to the Board of Assessors. Review Martha Smith for the position of the Board of Assessors with a term expiration of 12/31/17. Sure, I'll do both. And also would like to move Julianne Busa to the Conservation Commission with a term expiration of 12/31/17. Oh, I'm sorry, 18.
Okay.
So I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion and second to move the 2 mayoral appointments to appointment subcommittee for further review. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Okay, and our next meeting will be at 5:30 on the 4th of May, 2016.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ordinance, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Ordinance Subcommittee's had a busy week. We met on Monday to review Councilor Smith's request to look at a potential ban of particular plastic bags in East Hampton. So we did some background information and started exploring that issue. Our next step for that is we are going to meet May 25th, 6 p.m., where we are going to invite potential people who would be impacted by an ordinance such as this in East Hampton.
Did you mean April or May?
I meant May.
May 25th.
May 25th.
Yes.
That's correct. Because April 25th would be in 5 days. That's too soon.
Okay, I didn't know. It seemed like a long time.
It is. But we want to make sure, the reason why it's so long is we want to make sure everybody who should be there has plenty of notice to be able to be there. And we are continuing to look at food truck ordinance as well, and there have been some, new, fresh questions and issues around that. So we're going to dig a little deeper into that as well. And last night we had a joint public hearing with the planning board where we looked at a zone change request for 130 Cottage Street, where they did approve the change. And the subcommittee did vote last night as well. So I would like to set a public hearing for, I believe it's May 18th would be the second, because we need to. Yeah, because we need to have at least 14 days of posting. So.
Well, we only post that you've already satisfied the zoning.
Okay, so.
We could do it on the 4th.
Well,
we've gotten the planning board recommendation already.
So let's go to the 4th then.
Okay.
For some reason last night they were saying that they thought we would have to do it on the 18th for posting.
Right, because of posting
But
purposes.
but.
Because you already followed the zoning posting.
Yeah, so this is the council.
This is the council posting, which would be separate from the zoning posting. The zoning
10
posting
days.
is a longer.
Okay, so the 4th would be fine as long as there's not too many other public hearings that night. Then I'd be happy to do that.
A couple of finances, yeah.
All right, I don't care.
Okay, so I would like to make that in the form of a motion, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to set a public hearing for the zone change for 130 Cottage Street, May 4, 6:15 p.m. in these chambers. Was there a second? Yes.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
So like I said, just in conclusion, we will be meeting, our next meeting is the 25th of May at 6 p.m. In a room to be determined.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Property, Councilor Kwasinski.
Well, the property committee has scheduled a meeting for April 27th at 11:30 a.m. Wednesday, April 27th, 11:30 a.m.
You
Here.
lead complicated lives.
Yes.
I guess, yeah.
To talk about your statement.
This, to talk about the
Okay.
the mission statement from, as requested by Councilor Rist. And we hope to be able to provide that shortly. Thank you.
Thanks. Rules of Government Relations, Councilor Rist.
Well, thank you very much to both Councilor Kwasinski and Councilor Hayes, because that was the only question I had, is when we might receive those two mission statements. They're the last two we need for property and public safety. Secondly, I'd like to report out of committee Councilor Kwasinski's resolution on charter schools. It was approved 2-0. Councilor Winnie was unable to be there. I was kind of, I want to compliment Councilor Kwasinski because I learned a lot more about charter schools. One particularly issue, and we all know that this funding mechanism is something that's under question. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it would appear that if a special needs student is admitted to a charter school and they decide, and the funding, of course, goes from the community to that school, if they decide after October 1st that they can't help this person and send this student back to the community where they originated, the funding still stays with the school, the charter school. And that was a little item that I didn't know about. It makes me more concerned. The committee was very agreeable that this cap should not be lifted. And personally, I feel that this problem is one that must be resolved. The problem of funding mechanism and how these charter schools will be regulated. They are currently not under local jurisdiction. And I agree with everything that Councilor Kwasinski has said. And I'm going to open the floor to him because I'd like him to, if he feels he wants to, read the resolution and go further than I did on this subject.
Happy to read the resolution and simply say that we need to assure that what occurred some 150 years ago in Massachusetts with the beginning of free public education continues. And it is the charge of public education, traditional public schools, to educate everyone, wherever they come from, whether they speak English or they don't speak English. whether they're on an IEP or in special education or they're not, whether they have behavioral issues or they don't, whether they're the smartest and brightest or those who are looking to be smarter and brighter, because that's why we're here. Right now, the charter school cap, I mean, there's no need for the charter school cap to be lifted in that all the charter school current positions haven't been taken. There are a number of schools that could still become charter schools. There can still be more charter schools. Plus, there are many questions about charter schools here in the local area, in the region, in the state, and across the country. So let me read the resolution.
Was there someone who wanted to speak to this
Yes.
before we?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to read it, then I'll have it.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if you were
Yep.
making a motion, I apologize.
No. Whereas the object of free public schools is to provide a quality education for all our students, regardless of income, ability, need, or English language proficiency. And whereas in fiscal year 2016, the East Hampton School District is losing $729,162 to Commonwealth charter schools, and public school districts across the state are losing more than $408 million. And whereas Commonwealth charter schools are not only often approved over the objections of a majority of community residents and their elected officials, but once approved, use public funds without being accountable to any local elected official. And whereas further, Commonwealth charter schools often fail to serve the same proportion of special needs students, low-income students, and English language learners as the districts from which they receive students, and whereas Commonwealth charter schools often use high suspension rates to drive out students they don't want to serve, and whereas the Commonwealth charter school system is creating separate and unequal opportunities for success, therefore be it resolved that the East Hampton City Council opposes lifting the cap on Commonwealth charter schools.
Okay. Now, because actually for our last resolution, we certainly involved public involvement. So if there's anyone here from the public who would like to address this resolution, please feel free to come to the podium and state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Heather LePen. I live at 28B Pine Street in East Hampton. I lived here for about 10 years. I have a daughter who attends Maple Street School. And I want to thank the City Council for considering this resolution against lifting the cap on charter schools. As is stated in the resolution, our schools will lose over $700,000 this year. That does not include money that we lose to choice, and it's after reimbursements that we get from the state. During my time in East Hampton, I've gone to many budget hearings regarding our schools and have watched every year as our city has struggled to fund our school system. Most years we have difficulty achieving level budget funding, and often we can't achieve level service funding. We've lost programs, we've lost good staff, and what we want to see is more programs and more support for our staff who are doing an amazing job, even with all of these challenges, providing a really wonderful education to our students here in East Hampton. Unfortunately, as we lose funding to charter schools, and as we lose programs, parents are more likely to send their children to charter schools where they believe they're getting these programs that we can no longer provide in East Hampton, which creates this kind of really bad cycle of money leaving the district and students leaving the district. And which is especially unfortunate because a lot of the children that end up staying in the district, not just in East Hampton, but across Massachusetts, are children who maybe don't have the means to get transportation to another school, or they have IEPs and they're counseled out of charter schools, or they're disciplined out. And those are some of the students that require the most resources to educate. And so our schools struggle even more because now the population is more challenging to provide an education for. We simply cannot fund a second school system. We're struggling to fund the school system we have now, but our public schools are worth saving. And I'm very proud of our schools here in East Hampton. So I just wanted to thank the council again for taking this on.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anyone else from the public who'd like to address the council concerning this resolution, please feel free to come to the podium. Okay, I guess we'll go back to, is that your hand? Okay.
I just wanted to thank Heather for all of the work that you've done with educating people about how the charter cap legislation affects our community specifically, because it is very much a local issue. And for East Hampton, this definitely is not working out very well for us. So thank you, thank you.
So I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we accept the resolution as submitted by Councilor Krasinski against lifting the cap of Commonwealth charter schools.
Okay, motion and second to accept the resolution relating to charter school cap. All those in favor?
Would like to just comment, that would be sent to the Senate President, so to the House Speaker, to the Senator Helmerson and Representative Sykes.
Same as,
Okay, just wanted to be sure that that was part of it.
And I had a question. I'm sorry, I thought I was going to get an opportunity.
No, we have
for
a
the
motion and
question.
second, so there's still discussion.
Have you talked to our school committee about this? Have they instituted I'm surprised nobody from our school committee is here for
There
this.
are members of the school committee who are very concerned
Yeah.
about this.
Are they doing a resolution as well?
They may very well raise the issue again. I think the issue needs to be raised over and over again. There will be a ballot initiative likely in November. And I think the public needs to fully understand. And I think that this issue will affect all the budgets for all the communities across the entire Commonwealth. So yes, I think the timing that'll probably come forward and continue to raise consciousness on the subject.
No, thank you. And like I said with the prior resolution, even though it's a non-binding resolution, and even though it's not anything that actually becomes like a definitive piece of legislation for East Hampton, I think it is important to do these to really promote the voice of the city in regards to these pieces of legislation that are running statewide that affect communities. I mean, we say, like, 413 gets ignored all the time, nobody even knows where we are, there be dragons, the whole thing, that we need to put these things forward. And we're in a position with the State House right now that we have a good representation, and I'm really excited to see these happening. So thank you.
It is something also that may be worthwhile to repeat that education forum a couple more times, because I found it very educational. I think, or at least I learned parts, and I think there's a lot about the the public could learn, in hearing it a couple more times before the ballot. Councilor Rissich, you raised. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say, to comment on what Councilor Hayes said. What's important about these resolutions, all the resolutions that we send up to our representatives, is that they themselves get a chance to vote on these legislative acts that go before. And they need to hear from the communities they represent. And this is a way of telling them, hey, there's unanimous support against this cap, and you need to know that that's how we feel. And I think it's very important. I think resolutions, although on the surface they're considered non-binding and they're just us stating an opinion, it's an opinion that they need to hear, both the Senator Hummerson and Representative Sybeck, and the Senate President and House Speaker DeLeo, because I feel that the more communities that send these things up, the more that they know we represent our community, and they know we're hearing from our residents, and therefore they need to hear from us. So I just don't want to diminish the notion that resolutions have as much standing. No, we're not legislating anything, but we are making our opinion known, and I think it's important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Smith, did you raise your hand? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so there is a motion, a second. Any more comments before I call for vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
I just wanted to make a final rules comment on, there was some discussion on whether resolutions needed to go to committee. The charter has two somewhat conflicting sections in it. One, I think it's 2.5, says that all business before the council should go to committees, but also there's 2.9, which says measures can be dealt with in one meeting unless the council objects. So that allows us to adopt Rule 15, which says that yes, we can pass a resolution on one night. And by sending this to committee, I sometimes wonder if I'm influenced by 2.5 and thinking that we ought to send things to committee, but it wasn't meant to say that I had a question about it. And I think in the future, the only reason to do that is if a counselor feels, hey, I need more discussion on these resolutions. So I just wanted everybody to know that we are allowed to pass resolutions, donation accounts, and other petitions and things on one evening, unless one counselor objects, and then it has to go to committee. So thank you for that. And that concludes rules.
Okay. I believe we have another ad hoc committee for naming the ball field of Section 3 at Nona Park. So if anyone is interested in being in that naming committee, please again send in your names to either myself via the city clerk or the mayor for that naming committee. I am very excited to report that we actually finally were able to assemble a committee for the boardwalk naming. I actually had to appoint myself. To finally
Wait a minute, is that allowed?
So we have
Last man standing.
Jim Ramsey and Marsha Morrison will be on it. Myself, Elaine Wood, and Bill Sullivan will be the naming committee. And we'll meet. I'll reach out to them and use Mayor Tosnick's letter as a guide to how much further we should be pursuing this. But we'll keep you posted on the progress of that committee. And I guess that finishes tonight's business. So
I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. See you.